Hey, everybody, I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but you've got to see this. This is from Nieman and the Nieman Journalism Lab. And I want you to see the title. It is right here. The Nieman Journalism Lab. And I want you to see the title. It is right here. And it goes like this. White audiences who will pay is still Metro newspapers' survival strategy. Again, white audiences who will pay is still Metro newspapers' survival strategy. Okay. And the article goes on to mention, the piece goes on to mention that it says, as I scroll down, journalists of color don't just have to battle white newsroom power structures that marginalize and disempower them. They also have to deal with the reality of the survival strategy presumed to be optimal for metropolitan and regional newspapers, targeting white audiences who will pay for a digital subscription. Both explicitly and implicitly, the future of journalism, at least as imagined by white news media executives, is serving white paying audiences, a pre-existing problem made far worse by the market failure of local newspaper journalism and the distortions of the digital advertising market. Sometimes this is explicitly said in the newsroom, as Danye's editor said to him. Now you would say, what do I mean? Let's scroll back. This starts with a paragraph. We don't write for white subscribers, but it ends up being white people who read us, a Midwestern news executive told the audience earlier this year. In late June, NJ.com journalist Tennyson Danye's Twitter thread, an essay about his experiences trying to pitch and cover Black culture, went viral. Black journalists can't breathe. It's become my mental health hell, is what he wrote. He said, one of the most serious limitations preventing Danye from chronicling Black life in culture in New Jersey, his editor telling him to remember he was writing for white audiences. And that's something that I experienced on Facebook when an Oaklander wrote in black and white that regarding Mayor Schaaf presenting 200 parents, white, to have their own rally regarding the Oakland Unified School District Board actions, that and the complaints of 2 Black attendees, that she did not want to hear a Black point of view. She wrote that. And she's presented an objective point of view as more desirable. In other words, it was a code word for saying that she didn't want to hear Blacks complaining. She wrote that. And I blocked her. And then she got mad that I blocked her and didn't want to communicate. I don't like to communicate in 2 dimensions anyway. People have a tendency to write things that they wouldn't say in public. But she wrote that. And why would I want to have that ugliness presented toward me, right? So it goes on to say, sometimes it slips out in public forums or conferences, as I explained to you, as it did the University of Michigan Symposium on Journalism and Politics in February of this year, when a Midwestern news executive told an audience that this author was in, we don't write for white subscribers, but it ends up being white people who read us. In other cases, pre-existing wealth gaps feed into what is called the whiteness of a digital subscription base. The Boston Globe was the first metropolitan newsroom to sign up more digital subscribers than print ones. A Globe digital subscription costs $360 a year after initial discounts. In Boston in 2015, the article points out the average white family had a median net worth, of $247,000, while Dominicans and U.S. Blacks had a median wealth of close to zero. Quote, it's hard to imagine anything other than a white subscriber base fueling a newsroom whose customer service page notes that the print Globe is indeed compostable. It also should be noted the Globe, this writes, has recommitted to anti-racist coverage. It said, appointed Black newsroom leaders, and is engaged in an experiment to recreate a contemporary abolitionist newspaper. I'd like to see how that's going. And this goes on. This goes on to talk about the diversity problem. And it says when the diversity numbers of any American metropolitan newsroom are compared to the population of the cities they presumably serve, it's impossible to think that anyone other than white audiences are being targeted for coverage. And this isn't likely to improve without substantial effort that goes beyond improving newsroom diversity. It says the white populations in Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, and Philadelphia all make up less than 40% of each city's total population, but white journalists make up 74% or more of newsroom employees, according to 2017 ASNE Media Diversity Survey data crunched by digital publication The Pudding. According to the data, the Chicago Tribune, 80% of all news employees were white, as were 92% of newsroom leaders. The city of Chicago itself is 32% black. Following the recent round of buyouts in the wake of the Tribune's purchase by Alden Capital, it's hard to imagine the numbers improving. And this goes on. So I present this to you. It says, does the enduring whiteness of the Philadelphia Inquirer explain the way that the headline Building Matters 2 slipped into a column as opposed to, Black Lives Matter? Right? This is really good. All right? And I'm bringing it to everybody's attention because thank you for the Nieman Lab for pointing out what I've said for years, and that news organizations in America are largely white ran, and they slant their media toward a white audience. The Chronicle has done that for years, seeking out, for example, black columnists who got their job because they had no problem being critical of black politicians, particularly in Oakland. And they sought out, and the idea was that the corruption had to come from the black person, right? That's what they put out. They didn't say it. They showed it through their media. Even though, as we know, political corruption comes in all types of backgrounds. Okay? But that's what the practice was then. All right? It took me a whole year of trying to get a positive op-ed piece out of the Chronicle regarding the Super Bowl bid that I was putting together, only to see all that work that I put in to try to get John Diaz to comply, and I did, collapse the next year when he said, well, Jerry Brown's not on your side. I wonder to this day who really put him up to that. Okay? Even though, 10 years later, I wound up contributing to them City Bright's columnists. Yet it was racism that caused me to be ceremoniously booted. I say ceremoniously because I made a ceremony out of it. And I vowed to beat the Chronicle in Oakland from that point on. And that led to the construction of Oakland News Now. There you go. So I want to show you this. I want you to put this in your mental back pocket. Keep it in mind whenever you see coverage. Even if it doesn't have to do with race, you're wondering why it's there or who it's for. And think about that in the context of the few numbers of black people who own and run their own media companies. I'm 68% owner of Zenny62 Media. Keep all that in mind. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com, and that ends this broadcast. We'll see you at 9 o'clock in an hour to talk NFL. We'll see you. All right.